one thing. Black people being separate from everybody else, on our own and self-sufficient. Then he went to Mecca and the experience opened his eyes. He started to see the beauty of making common cause with other people. A man he met, Gama Pinto, born in Kenya, led him to think about Pan-Africanism. Black people all over the globe working together. Then the two of them were killed 4 days apart.
What?
Martin Luther King Jr. was organizing the Poor People's Campaign. He said, "I think it is necessary for us to realize that we have moved from the era of civil rights to the era of human rights. We have moved into an era where we are called upon to raise certain basic questions about the whole society. The whole society, not just black folks." Next thing you know, he had been shot. Then there was Fred Hampton of the Black Panthers. The Panthers was started in the 1960s by Huey Newton and Bobby Seale to protect black folks from racist police officers. They used to follow the police around, and when the police stopped some black dudes, the Panthers were there to make sure their rights were protected. The Panthers were some badass brothers wearing their leather jackets and berets. They were all about protecting black folks, but Fred Hampton was starting to move beyond that. He saw that blacks needed to band together with others, and he was starting to make common cause with poor white folks. Go look it up. There's video footage. White oaky-looking dudes you could picture in Klan hoods and robes, except they're standing next to Fred Hampton, saying they stand with the Black Panthers. Next thing you know, Hampton is dead too. See a pattern? Frank Wills and the Watergate scandal. Let me tell you how a black man who never finished high school brought down the most powerful person on the planet. In the fall of 1968, Richard M. Nixon was elected the 37th President of the United States. How he did it was he spent a lot of time on the campaign trail talking about law and order. Today that's what they call a dog whistle. The way a dog can hear a dog whistle, but people can't. Some folks didn't pay attention when Nixon said law and order, but other folks heard him real good. And those were the ones Nixon was talking to. They knew what Nixon meant by law and order. Keep black people in their place. When you hear Donald Trump say law and order, don't think he means anything different. Black folks got their revenge on Nixon, though. Now, Nixon was a Republican, and in 1968 he beat the Democrat, Hubert Humphrey, in one of the closest elections America had ever had. But 4 years later, in 1972, it was a different story. Nixon was running for re-election, and the Democrats put up George McGovern as their candidate. Maybe the Democrats wanted to lose that year. McGovern stood about as much of a chance against Nixon as a cockroach against an elephant. All Nixon had to do to win was not get run over by a bus. But Nixon was insecure. That was his downfall. And his insecurity spread to the people around him. Some of those people were on what they call the Committee to Re-elect the President, or CRP. In 1972, one of them, G. Gordon Liddy, came up with a plan to break into the Democratic headquarters to photograph documents and plant bugs. That way they'd know what the Democrats were up to and could stop them from winning the election. The plan was illegal, but if you think that kept Liddy awake at night, think again. He told a couple of people about it. One of them was John Dean, who worked as a lawyer for Nixon. The other one was John Mitchell, who was the U.S. Attorney General at the time. The Attorney General is the top law enforcement officer in the country. How do you like that? Mitchell didn't like the plan at first, but when a couple of details got changed, he said, "Go ahead." So Liddy pulled in a couple of other guys, E. Howard Hunt and James McCord, and they got 5 other dudes to break into the Democratic headquarters in the Watergate Hotel in Washington, D.C. Now here's where the black folks' revenge comes in. A black man named Frank Wills was 24 years old at the time. He was born in Georgia and dropped out of high school in the 11th grade. He went north and found a few jobs, first in Michigan and then in D.C. Never made much money, just an ordinary fella. But that ordinary fella changed history. In 1972, Wills was working as a security guard at the Watergate. The hotel had to have security guards, but nobody had ever tried to break in, and the place seemed so safe that the building security guards didn't carry guns. One day, Wills was making his rounds, and he noticed a door with some tape over the bolt, put there so the door would close but not lock. Wills took the tape off and went to finish his rounds. A half hour later, he came back around to the same spot, and there was the tape again. Wills knew something fishy when he saw it, so he called the police. That's how the 5 dudes got arrested while they were trying to spy on the Democrats. When the FBI took a closer look into things, they found out that the 5 burglars had been paid by CRP. That made the FBI real curious. Now here's where Nixon blew it. The Watergate break-in wasn't his idea. All he had to do was say, "I ain't had nothing to do with it," and let the FBI look wherever they wanted. But he was scared of what else they might find, so that's when the cover-up started. Nixon told one of his aides, Bob Haldeman, to tell the CIA to block the FBI investigation. How do you like that? 2 spy organizations working against each other, but they're both working for the same country. Nixon's little plan didn't work, though, and soon a U.S. Senate committee was on his trail. It found out that Nixon secretly taped conversations in his office, and the Supreme Court ruled that Nixon had to turn over those tapes. It was all over then. On the tapes, Nixon could be heard talking about the cover-up. He knew he was going to get impeached. To avoid that, he resigned in 1974. His vice president, Spiro Agnew, had already resigned for other reasons, and the new vice president, Gerald Ford, gave Nixon a pardon. He didn't have to do any jail time. Just about everybody else involved went to jail, though. 40 people either went to prison over that Watergate mess, or just missed being sent there. All because of one black man, Frank Wills. Nixon and his boys may have had the last laugh, though. Nixon got away clean, and John Dean, G. Gordon Liddy, E. Howard Hunt, H.R. Haldeman, every last one of those dirty dogs, plus a couple more I haven't mentioned, made serious money writing books about Watergate. What happened to Frank Wills? The only honest one in the bunch and the only one who tried to do his job right? I hired him, paid him $2,500 a week. Later, he tried to get a job at Howard University in D.C., but they told him they were scared they'd lose federal funding if they hired him. I said to Wills one day, "Now I want to ask you something. Man, when you woke up that morning, you were about to bring down the most powerful human being in the world. Did you feel anything? I mean, did you look up in the sky and see tens of thousands of horses? Did you hear trumpets blow?" I asked him that because I wanted to know, when you get a call like that, do you know something's about to happen? Or do you not know? Which means it could happen to any of us. Buffalo Soldiers. Now, Bob Marley, the Jamaican reggae artist, he was a brilliant musician.
Looking for a professional photographer for your next big event? Need video of your special day? Then look no further. For $100 an hour, have a professional photographer or videographer shoot your wedding, birthday party, quinceañera, bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah, anniversary party, or whatever your special occasion may be. Highlight your event with professional, crisp photos and video. Check out Charles Arness Photography on Instagram, as well as book us for your next event. Must live in the Southern California area.
Wow. Watergate. I did not know. I knew about Watergate, but I didn't know the details of it. I knew it was some shady stuff. That's good that Dick Gregory looked out for him and gave him a job, paying $2,500 a week. Wow. That's good. I wonder what kind of work he did for Dick Gregory. I wonder if I can look that up and see what kind of work he did for Dick Gregory. That's good. That's how it should be. You know, once have each other's back. You know what I'm saying? Dude, they fired this dude for doing the right thing, and because he was a brother. And all those other cats that were involved doing something illegal got rich. And he looked out for them. That's how it's called. That's how you unify people. That's how you unify and make things happen and look out for your brother. I'm all about unity with all people, but we can't unify with everybody until we can unify with ourselves and help each other out. That was beautiful that Dick Gregory did that. You know what I'm saying? Scandalous shit though, right? The same thing Trump was doing. They always do shady stuff to try to get in and find an angle to be sneaky. They never can play the game fair. You know what I'm saying? They never can play the game fair. But the name of this book is called Defining Moments in Black History, Reading Between the Lines by the late great comedian Dick Gregory. I think he lived to be like 96 and 98 years old. And I believe he had 10 kids from his one wife. He had 10 kids from one wife, Dick Gregory. That's crazy. Anyway, amazing dude. Shout out to him. Rest in peace to Dick Gregory. Check out his book on Audible and let me know what y'all think. Leave your comments. Hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe to Charles and Ezra. Appreciate it.